to a brand new episode of Virtual Coffee. My name is Alexa Collier, and on this podcast, we chat with small business owners where we discuss their journeys, perspectives, their pieces of advice, and sometimes I do solo episodes to share what's been on my mind. Now, with me today is Ryan, the co-founder and co-owner of Simples. They're located in the Twin Cities area and deliver homemade, sustainable foods made with all local ingredients. They're definitely a market differentiator in this space, and Ryan dives into their journey and pivots they had to make since 2014 when they started on this journey for Simples, and he dives into all of that on this episode. So be sure to check out Simples, but before we hear from Ryan, of course, would love if you could rate and review Virtual Coffee on the Apple Podcast app and on Spotify. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the social medias. You can find us at Virtual Coffee Podcast. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I know you'll enjoy this episode with Ryan. So let's dive in and learn more about Simples. Welcome, Ryan. Thank you so much for being on Virtual Coffee today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to our conversation. So let's dive right in. Introduce yourself to our audience and, of course, a bit about your business, Simples.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan Rosenthal, co-founder and co-CEO at Simples, and we are selling easy, delicious, sustainable foods that get delivered to your door. So we sell on our website. We make the food ourselves from scratch in our kitchen with an awesome team of chefs, and they're all prepared foods, so they're super easy at home for you to just grab out of your freezer, and we are really focused on sustainability and making our foods with better for you ingredients. So better for you, better for the planet, and have been working on it since 2014. So it's been an interesting journey to get to this point, but really excited about what's to come, not just for our business, but for food in general. I think we've all got a lot to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. And where did the idea for Simples come from way back in 2014 or maybe even earlier? What kind of sparked the idea for it?
Yeah, so interestingly, at the time, I actually, out of college, I went to work at General Mills, so kind of the opposite end of the food spectrum. Worked in supply chain there. I learned a ton. I did really enjoy my time working there. But as I got a few years out of school, I was really starting to think about what I got up to go do every day, and just wasn't quite feeling as motivated as I thought I should be in my career at that point. And I think a lot of that came back to just feeling like really wanted to make positive contributions at my work every day. And that coincided with this idea of getting really interested in local, organic, sustainable foods. And I was really getting pretty deep into where our food comes from and what I was actually purchasing when I went to the grocery store. And so Mike, my co-founder, and I were actually living together in Minneapolis at the time. We had moved back from working in other parts of the country for a couple of years and just started riffing on that issue of why can't quick foods be delicious, wholesome, and sustainable? There's always a trade-off when you need a quick meal, and we felt there shouldn't be. So then that started us down the path of creating a business plan.
Yeah, I always appreciate when people realize what their personal why is, and they either realize, oh, my current job fulfills that, that's great, or oh, I need a pivot to something else. And I just always love when people have that realization and are able to pivot to something that sounds like, Simples for you does fulfill your why and makes you personally happy as well as your consumers, of course, right? And contributing positively to the world. So I always love when people have those pivot stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how does Simples kind of differ from potentially other offerings out there in the marketplace? Sounds like sustainability is probably a big one, but help paint the picture of why Simples stands out, why it's a differentiator.
Yeah, I mean, so we start with easy, we're trying to make it as easy as possible. So that means, we're delivering to your door, the food's prepared. So really all you're doing is reheating it at home, and it's 10 to 20 minutes of kind of
Mm.
unmonitored time to get it ready to eat. And then on top of that, we have just an incredible team of chefs. So, we're really thinking of the starting point from creating foods to be delicious, and then we kind of work backwards into how to bring that to reality. But these are foods that you're not going to find the quality level in a grocery store. So just
Mm-hmm.
we can talk more about the product specifically, but the pizza that we make is like none other you'd find in the frozen grocery aisle. So it's like going to the best wood-fired pizzeria out for dinner, only it's in your freezer at home.
Yeah.
And then we are layering on sustainability. So, we work a lot directly with growers, and because of those relationships we have, we are able to really elevate the quality and sustainability of what's actually going into the food.
Excellent. Yeah, so it sounds like the quality of your food, and then also it's the gets delivered and you just heat it up. There's really no preparation or cooking, if you will, required by the person consuming the food.
Absolutely. And that's really the goal of kind of what I was talking about earlier of how we started on the journey is let's get rid of the trade-offs. I mean, when
Right.
you need to eat something quickly, and especially if you have a family, families are super busy, it should be delicious. It should be wholesome for your family, and it should contribute positively to the food system and the planet rather than being kind of an extractive type thing that's kind of the norm for our food system.
Right. Yeah, I am totally behind that. I mean, even our household is just myself, my husband, and of course our two dogs. But work has been really busy these past few weeks, and the last thing I want to do is cook dinner at, 6, 7 p.m. And then our options are I always want something on the healthier side, but what are our options for a quick meal, right? Even when you go and get sushi for takeout or something. I mean, it's never that quick. It's a 20-minute drive, yada yada yada. So I'm totally behind this concept. I love it. I think it solves a lot of people's pain points in their busy lives.
Yeah, I totally agree. For Mike and I, we've always shared that same issue that you're
Mhm.
talking about.
Would love to dive into some of your offerings, whether you want to give some examples of the foods you guys provide or even how folks can buy some of your products. Is there a subscription? Can you just buy one-off products? Kind of dive into those logistics.
Yeah, so as of right now, we sell our products in the Twin Cities metro in Minnesota, and we're delivering to the inner cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, as well as the suburbs. So it's a pretty large delivery area. If you are in the Twin Cities, we deliver within 2 days of your order, but you can schedule a date. So kind of whenever it works in your schedule to have it show up at your door. And you can place just one-off orders. So you can just hop on the site right now, put stuff in your cart and buy. But we do have a subscription as well where you can save 10% and there's free delivery. So you can choose to get it every week up to once a month. So that's really easy for people. And then the products, our two primary things right now are soup and pizza. And so
Mm.
soup was the thing we actually started with. And that's scratch made. So and all the way down to the veggie stock, everything comes in in an ingredient form for us, and then we make it all.
Wow.
And we're using 70% organic ingredients as a minimum. There's nothing artificial in our list, so you'll only see whole foods listed in the ingredient deck. And then we're working more and more with regenerative growers. So I'm not sure if everyone on here will have heard of regenerative agriculture yet, but it's really an exciting and expanding area of how we grow food. And the concept being that we can grow foods in a way that restores our soil and really helps create a
Mm.
biodiverse, resilient food supply chain that's healthier for people and for our planet. examples would be Thousand Hills Beef here. So we're working with them, and they supply a lot of our beef, but also some pork. We also just launched a miso soup with kernza in
Ooh, nice.
it. And kernza is a perennial grain that sequesters carbon and puts it in the soil. And so it's really helping address some of the climate issues that we are going to be facing in the near future. So our pizzas I
Yes.
talked a little bit about earlier, but what makes them so great, they're hand tossed crust. It's
Mm.
100% naturally leavened, and we make it with organic heritage wheat, so it's can be easier for some people to digest. And then scratch made sauces and all kinds of fun and adventurous toppings as well.
That's awesome. Everything sounds so delicious, and it's currently lunchtime here in Raleigh, so now I'm I'm starving. Yeah, I love how it really sounds like you guys incorporate your mission, that sustainability, working with local farmers, local ingredients, like that is clearly just so woven into every aspect of your business, right? It's not just what you say when you introduce your business, you're actually showing how you act on that mission and vision, which is incredible. Clearly, you guys have a really strong why behind Simples. I kind of want to jump to future state because my questions around that are, would you guys ever open like a local restaurant, or how do you scale Simples? Have you looked into that? Is that part of your goals to start to expand to other areas?
100%. Yeah, we've got a big vision for where we could take this.
Hmm.
And really the driver behind that is that we want to be a part of scaling, this different way of how we grow food and
Hmm.
this organic and regenerative food system. We'd like that to be the norm. And as a result of being the norm and scaled, that it's accessible to everyone, not just people that have higher incomes. And so that's why, we're pursuing a bigger vision. And so the next step for us is we are going to just stay in the Twin Cities for another year, probably working on continuing to add more options to our platform. But we certainly have in our line of sight moving into other metros in the relatively near future here. We intend to continue delivering it ourselves, and part of that is because of sustainability again, where I'm not a big fan of all the packaging waste
Hmm.
associated with e-commerce. And the primary option for us actually for when we bring food to the doorstep is that people will leave coolers out. And
Ah,
so,
yeah.
we just bring the food and drop it in someone's cooler, and that's, there's no cardboard, there's no insulation. So, yeah, excited about that, but we'll definitely be staying kind of in metro areas moving forward.
Yeah, no, that sounds very interesting. So, if you were to expand to other areas, it sounds like you would also expand and hire chefs or what have you in that area so that, to your point, you can have that very local delivery versus everything is made where you currently are and then it's shipped through FedEx, the mail, UPS, etc. Is that right? Like you'd almost have like, right, these local chefs kind of in each area?
Definitely, and in terms of,
Cool.
and especially relating to sustainability, thinking about
Mm-hmm.
how can food supply chains be more localized, less moving of foods around the country, and thinking more about what's grown in each area and how that can be, more in front of people that are, I guess, consuming things from, people and growers that surround them.
Yeah, very cool. Definitely a differentiator in this space because you guys have that local piece of your business and the sustainability piece, and not just let's mass produce food in one location and then ship across the country, which I think is a very innovative idea. So that's excellent. Looking forward to your expansion and continuing to follow your journey. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, want to dive into, looking back since you guys started way back when, what were some of the highlights or biggest challenges, just kind of those moments that stand out in this journey that upon reflection you think might help others who are starting their own business or who are in the food industry, just any of those major milestones that you've accomplished over the years? What comes to mind there when you reflect on your journey?
Oh man. I mean, it's a never-ending,
Hmm.
never-ending source of new problems, but in a good way. I mean, right? You're like,
Yeah.
that's your job is to solve problems every day and figure out how to bring your vision to reality with your team. So I think one of the craziest parts of our journey is that we actually launched our business as a brick and mortar concept of fresh food.
Oh, okay.
And so that was in 2014 when we were writing that original business plan. I talked about we were creating these little convenience markets that were, had the same food value proposition. So local, sustainable, better for you foods, but it was in a fresh format. So you could think about salads and sandwiches and soups and kind of like
Yeah.
going to, if you went into a grocery store and walked into their prepared food section,
Hmm.
that's what these little mini marts look like. So we had grown to 3 stores in Minneapolis, and then
Wow.
the pandemic happened, and we had to completely change our business model because the commuting ended, and unfortunately, where our locations were located, they were almost exclusively commuter driven. And so in a matter of a week, we went to $0 in sales, literally,
Wow. Wow.
which was obviously very chaotic. But
Yeah.
out of
I can
that,
imagine.
yeah, and it was not a fun experience. I mean,
Hmm.
really challenging. It had a huge negative impact on our staff, and all of working through that was really hard. But it did give us this new opportunity, and it was born out of just trying to get cash out of our inventory. We
Hmm.
repackaged what was formerly food service soup size bags into little deli quarts and froze them and put up a quick shoppable website, and here we are. And so we exited that model and created this new model. And that came out of a time that was just, it really kind of looked like the end for us at
Hmm.
that point. But we found a new way, and then our team, was resilient enough and cared enough about what we're doing to rebuild it. You never know what kinds of major hurdles you're going to run into, and you
Hmm.
just seemingly can never predict what you're going to run into either. I mean, I could have never dreamed this is where we'd end up, but here we are. You just keep going each day and try to take more steps forward than you do backwards.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Again, the ability to pivot there, right? There were, of course, so many businesses that unfortunately had to shut down due to the pandemic for the reasons you just explained. But that's incredible that you were able to pivot, which seems like quite quickly as well, to a very successful model. Would you guys ever go back to those shops, do you think?
not in the same format.
Hmm.
Definitely not going to rule out, what the future could look like in terms
Sure.
of some type of store presence and or partnership, but yeah, definitely not in the fresh food format that we were working on earlier. Going
Yeah.
to stay focused on our frozen prepared foods.
That's fair. I think that makes sense. Do you personally have any, I know you first worked at General Mills, so some experience there, but experience with running your own business or even in the food industry? Because I know running your own business in that industry in particular can be quite tricky with all the regulations. How is that learning curve? Did you have any prior experience? Any tips and tricks for tackling a new industry like that?
Well, I think, okay, so I'll start with experience. Really didn't have much, and I think
Okay.
that's part of why we actually did it. It's just
Hmm.
being, pretty naive about what it would entail. So, my experience prior to that, prior to General Mills, was just internships in big companies and then running my own lawn and landscaping business
Oh,
when I
okay.
was in high school. So that was the extent of my entrepreneurial journey up until that point. And that was low scale neighborhood work just to
Yeah.
help pay for school. So pay for college. So, but I think just there's never a perfect time and you're not going to know everything. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, if you just take the first step, that's the biggest deal. And then you just have to be, ready to dive in and be curious and learn and solve the problems. If you get to the point where you do feel completely prepared, you're probably not moving fast enough. That's
Mm.
kind of the way I think about it. Even still
Mm-hmm.
now, if we're launching products, it's, you're always not quite sure if you have everything right, but you just got to get it out into market and start learning.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective, great pieces of advice in there to one, just start, learn along the way, and to your point, if it's too comfortable, look into that. Like why is it too comfortable? Why is it too easy? Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice there for others, for anyone really, whether you have your own business or not. So, who is on your team as of now? I'm more curious kind of what your day to day is like. Are you actually in the kitchen? Are you delivering the products, or were you able to expand your team so that you're more on the strategy operations side? What does that look like?
Yeah, we've definitely been fortunate to grow the team. So I
Mhm.
do I do work much less in the daily operations than I used to. It still definitely depends. There's a big asterisk there of if we're really busy, I definitely end up in the kitchen or on delivery routes
Hmm.
from time to time. But that's also interesting. You get to see kind of firsthand how things are working and experiencing it and seeing if there's anything that could use improvement. But normally, my day is much more centered around what's next for us on a quarterly basis, but also further out than that, and setting the vision for our team and creating a culture that people want to be a part of, and making sure the business has the funding it needs. So that's much more of my work at this point. I center a lot of my daily operation work on brand, product, and service. So kind of
Mm.
leading, those particular aspects on a daily basis with our team.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations on expanding your team. And also, I feel like congratulations on learning all those hats that you have to wear, right? And have worn over the years. I know that's definitely not easy, but I can't even imagine the skill sets, plural, that you've gained throughout this journey is just incredible to me when people go from I have this idea to years later it's a successful business, and just thinking about everything you've learned about running a business. It's just incredible to me, like the amount you've taken on.
Yeah, I mean, the learning curve is very steep,
Hmm.
and it's chock full of lots of mistakes that I wish I could do over again. But that's part of it. It's again back to that idea of it's never going to be a perfect time, and you're never going to know exactly what you're doing. So
Hmm.
you got to be ready to jump into it and make the mistakes. And really the key is how do you come back from the mistake, or what do you do differently next time?
Exactly. How do you have that growth mindset and can recognize the mistake? Yep, accept it, move on, and learn from it. Curious if Simples is, you're working on it nearly 24/7. And I'm sure this fluctuates depending on the season or what's going on that week. Or is it more like a classic 9 to 5 now? And either way, how do you kind of balance running your own business, which I'm sure it's really easy to work on that 24/7, to have an idea in the middle of the night and want to work on it. How do you balance that with life, hobbies, friends, family, all the other stuff besides the business?
It's hard.
Mm.
I know. It's something I'm still trying to learn because it does require a lot of time, especially when your expectations are high of what, you and your team can do. But at the same time, I know that's something that I'm trying to push myself to be better at, which is that if you don't take time for yourself and time to recharge, you're probably not going to be able to bring your best performance to your team
Mhm.
and your business every day. So I find myself wanting to work on it all the time because I really do love what we do. And so a lot of times working on projects, pushing stuff forward doesn't necessarily feel like work. But at the same time, I have to be what I've learned and what I'm working on now is just trying to be much more intentional about scheduling exercise or time with my family and friends. Otherwise, the work can just take over. So
Yeah.
that's, for me, I'm trying to be much more intentional about actually having a plan for all of the things outside of work.
I like doing that too, of planning the personal things as well as work and business things. I don't think there's anything wrong with like intentionally setting that time for those hobbies, family, friends, what have you. Like even putting it in your calendar, right? I think that's a great strategy to try to balance that because then you can kind of look at your calendar and see, oh wow, I've worked a lot today, or oh, I have a free time to do whatever I want. So yeah, I appreciate that strategy. I think it's a good one.
Definitely, you actually get some visibility into
Yeah.
kind of the full spectrum of things you have on your plate.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Brian, for sharing your perspectives and your journey. And the last question I end every episode with, it's probably the hardest one, is in this moment, what is your proudest accomplishment? So far, what's kind of that first thing that pops into mind when I ask you what your proudest accomplishment is? And it can be related to Simples or on a completely separate topic. Again, just kind of that first thing that comes to mind.
I think it's the team that we
Mm.
have. It's just really cool to think about that, however many years ago before we started, this didn't exist. And the team we have are just incredibly talented people that are really passionate about creating a better food system. And, I'm inspired working with them every day towards the shared vision we have. And it's just really fun to be a part of that team, and knowing that, Mike and I, our kitchen table kind of back of the napkin thought process turned into something real that's
Yeah.
that's impacting, people's lives each day.
Yeah, and again, congratulations on everything you've accomplished so far and will accomplish in the future. Looking forward to following your journey. And where can, before we sign off, where can people find you in Simple's social medias, your website, shout everything out so they can check you out?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is just simples.com, simpls.com. And then we have an Instagram and Facebook account, Eat Simples. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to connect, just shoot me a message. Happy to, have a discussion or see if there's any way I can help.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on Virtual Coffee, Ryan, and I hope everyone checks you out and Simples. And again, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.